The price of power. The sun was dipping low over the tidy lawns of Willow Creek, a suburban enclave in Virginia, when I pulled into my driveway after a long day at the county prosecutor's office. My name's David Harper, a district attorney who's seen the worst of humanity in courtrooms. But nothing could have prepared me for the sight of my 6-year-old daughter, Lily, crumpled on our front porch, her tiny hands bloodied, clutching a jagged piece of lumber. Her tear-streaked face told a story of pain no child should know. "The mean lady said I was bad," she sobbed. "She said you wouldn't want me anymore." That mean lady was Margaret Ellison, the iron-fisted president of our homeowners association, who had no idea she'd just crossed a father with the law on his side. Lily was my world, a spark of joy since her mother, Claire, passed from leukemia 3 years ago. Seeing her broken, her sundress torn and her pigtails unraveling, ignited a fury in me I'd never felt. I knelt beside her, heart pounding. "Sweetheart, what happened?" Her small voice trembled as she explained how Margaret had caught her drawing butterflies with chalk on the sidewalk. "I was making it pretty for Mommy," she whispered. "But the lady yelled and made me carry this heavy wood. She said bad kids don't get to keep their daddies." The wood was rough, weighing at least 10 pounds, far too much for a child her size. Splinters had torn her palms, leaving bloody streaks. My vision blurred with rage, but I held her close, promising she was safe now. Margaret lived in a gaudy colonial at the end of Sycamore Lane, ruling Willow Creek like her personal fiefdom. Lily said the woman had screamed about defacing community property and forced her to haul lumber from her backyard to the curb 10 times as punishment. When Lily's hands bled, Margaret sneered, "Bad girls don't complain." The final blow? She told Lily I'd abandon her for being naughty. That wasn't just cruelty, it was psychological torment. As a father, I was livid. As a prosecutor, I was already building a case. After tending to Lily's wounds and leaving her with my sister next door, I marched to Margaret's house. My hands shook, not from fear, but from the effort to stay calm. She answered the door in pristine yoga gear, her face a mask of smug entitlement. "David Harper, 214, Cedar Drive," I said evenly. "We need to talk about my daughter." Margaret didn't flinch. "Oh, the little delinquent with the chalk? I handled it. Kids need to learn respect for rules." Her casual dismissal of Lily's pain made my blood boil. "You forced a 6-year-old to carry lumber, injuring her, for drawing washable chalk? That's not discipline, it's abuse." She crossed her arms. "The HOA bans defacing sidewalks. I enforce community standards. If you parented better, we wouldn't have this issue." I stepped closer. "Touch my daughter again, and you'll face consequences far beyond your little rulebook." She smirked, unfazed, and I walked away, her gaze burning into my back. The next morning, my assistant, Rachel, called me at the office. "David, Margaret Ellison filed a complaint with the Virginia Bar Association. She claims you threatened her and abused your position." I leaned back, a cold resolve settling in. Margaret thought she was clever, but she'd just picked a fight with someone who'd spent years dismantling bullies in court. For months, I'd been investigating HOA overreach across the state, gathering evidence of harassment and abuse. Margaret had just handed me the perfect case to expose her kind. I hired a private investigator to dig into Margaret's reign over Willow Creek. By noon, I'd cleared the bar complaint with a detailed account of her actions. By evening, neighbors started talking. Mrs. Larson, a retiree on Elm Street, shared how Margaret had forced her grandson to scrub her deck in 90-degree heat for kicking a ball onto her lawn. Another family, the Garcias, revealed how Margaret fined them $3,000 for a non-compliant mailbox, driving them to sell their home. The worst came from Mrs. Patel, who whispered about a 9-year-old boy with asthma, forced to rake leaves for hours after dropping a candy wrapper. The child ended up in the ER. Parents stayed silent, fearing Margaret's wrath, fines, liens, or endless harassment. Then came the bombshell. Mrs. Patel had security footage of Margaret berating Lily, towering over her as she struggled with the lumber. "Move faster, you little brat." Margaret barked on tape. Lily fell twice, crying, but Margaret only pointed to the pile, demanding more. The footage captured her final cruelty. "Tell your daddy what happens to kids who break rules." My heart broke watching it, but as a lawyer, I knew this was gold. Margaret didn't stop. She slapped my home with a $4,000 fine for a non-approved rosebush Claire and I had planted years ago. Neighbors got similar notices, too bright porch lights, and wrong fence paint. She was retaliating against anyone who'd spoken to my investigator. But her boldest move came Friday. My phone rang as I reviewed case law. "Mr. Harper, this is Principal Monroe at Pinewood Elementary. Come get Lily now. There's an incident." I sped to the school, dread gnawing at me. In the principal's office, Lily sat curled in a chair, tears streaming. Margaret sat opposite, smug as ever. Principal Monroe was furious. Ms. Ellison claimed she was conducting an HOA inspection of our drop-off zone. She went to the playground at recess, singled out Lily, and made her stand in a corner for not knowing HOA rules. My jaw clenched. She did what? Monroe continued. She forced Lily to recite regulations. When she couldn't, Margaret said she'd face more community service and might have to live with strangers if you moved. Lily looked at me, terrified. "Daddy, she said you'd leave me." I turned to Margaret, my voice lethal. "You're done. You will not approach my daughter again, or I'll have you charged with stalking and child abuse." She laughed. "I'm HOA president. I enforce standards." I faced Monroe. "Ban her from school grounds. Call the police if she returns." Security escorted Margaret out as she shouted, "You'll regret this, Harper." Her calling Lily a brat in front of witnesses was another mistake. That weekend, I filed for a restraining order and lodged complaints with the state's HOA Oversight Board, Child Protective Services, and the Attorney General. On Monday, a local news channel aired an expose, "HOA Tyrant Targets Kids," featuring Mrs. Patel's footage and interviews with affected families. The story went viral, painting Margaret as a suburban despot. At the restraining order hearing, Judge Callahan, a no-nonsense veteran, watched the video with visible disgust. "Ms. Ellison, this is abuse, plain and simple," she declared. "The restraining order is granted. An investigation into your fitness to lead this HOA begins now." The state dug deeper. Margaret had embezzled $500,000 in HOA funds, splurging on her home renovations and a Caribbean cruise she called a conference. She'd issued $700,000 in fines, many baseless, and foreclosed on 8 homes. Her files revealed a vendetta against single parents and minorities, with notes calling my family troublemakers and Lily needy. She'd planned to escalate her attacks until we left. 3 weeks later, Margaret faced felony charges: embezzlement, child endangerment, and fraud. The FBI probed her illegal surveillance of residents. The HOA ousted her and rewrote its bylaws to protect families. Mrs. Patel became the new president, launching a Kids Art Day where children